Hi everyone. I am here for another part of the virtual Q&A series. Let's talk about it. My name is Jess Caliendo. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am an orientation leader with the Office of Student Orientation and Family Programs. And this is my professor, Dr. Taylor.
Hi. Hi, I'm Dr. Taylor, and I teach mostly research classes and human behavior classes through the School of Social Welfare at Stony Brook. And I'm an adjunct. I've been there for quite a long time now, I think 8 years, and then I teach at some other local schools in the area. Welcome.
Ah, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Definitely.
Awesome. So, my first question for you is what led you to the field of social work and what do you love about it?
Well, let's see. So my undergrad degree is from the University of Pacific, which a lot of people haven't heard of out here. It's actually in California. And my undergrad is in psychology. And so I loved that degree. It's so interesting. And I got done, and there's not a whole lot that you can do with that degree on its own. And I started working with boys in a group home and loved it. So they'd been taken out of their home for a number of different reasons. And there I worked with a lot of different different people with different degrees. And this one woman had a degree in social work. She had a master's degree in social work. And so I started to better understand the different fields and knew that's what I wanted to do. So then I started to pursue that, and it ended up with I got my master's in social work and worked for a few years in the fields of domestic violence and suicide prevention, crisis intervention services, and worked at this one place where we did suicide prevention, sexual assault intervention and prevention, and it was right. Our building was right next to a university, and so we provided crisis intervention classes for social work students in the department there. So I taught a crisis intervention class. And
Ah,
that's where my love came for teaching. And I thought, wow, that I love this. So I went back and got my doctorate.
wow, that's incredible. Oh, I love that. So that actually perfectly leads into my next question. I was curious about how you got involved as a professor at Stony Brook University.
So I've navigated, I'm from the West Coast, and I slowly navigated through a number of different, life stories, but navigated slowly east with a stop in Texas. And all my kids, I have three kids, they were born there. And actually, I got my master's degree and doctorate at the University of Texas in Arlington. And props to that school, UTA, loved it there. Started teaching there while I was working on my doctorate degree, and then navigated through to Maryland. And, one thing with having a doctorate degree is that it allowed me to kind of teach as an adjunct while I was raising my kids.
Wow.
I have three kids, they're very close in age, and I have a son who has a lot of learning difficulties.
Mm.
And he learns differently, and a typical classroom is just not for him. So I homeschooled him and worked with him in a lot of different ways. And being an adjunct allowed me to create a schedule that worked best for me. And so wherever we were planted allowed me to do that, work with him and also teach, which is a love of mine. So I taught in Maryland, and then we moved here in 2011.
Mm.
So I started teaching here almost immediately at Stony Brook once we moved here. And I've been at Stony Brook almost, since. And it's one of my favorite schools I've ever been at teaching. So the students are amazing. The faculty there is amazing. The department is wonderful. And I just can't say enough about it.
Oh, trust me, we're very lucky to have you.
Yes. I'll pay you later. Uh,
Um, okay, so my next question is, what are your main goals personally as an educator?
So I would say that this is what I like to believe about teaching is that my students learn a little bit from me, a little bit from the textbook, and a lot from each other in the learning environment. And my hope is that when they come to class, I teach research, which is considered a difficult class, and it's not always, sometimes, but it's not always the class that students jump up and down to be in. They especially social workers, they love the clinical classes and human behavior, which is another class that I teach that I absolutely love. Research is a little bit more of a difficult class, and if I can get
Mhm.
students to enjoy something about a class that they're not so excited about being in, just from the learning environment, then to me that's success. And a lot of students, especially social work students, often come into a class like research or statistics with sort of this past trauma,
Yeah.
math, or just a fear about that. Not all, but some. And I've had a lot of students who have come out of it on the other end, and they're like, that wasn't so bad.
That's
And
amazing.
to get something like that out of a student who comes in just almost shaking is
Aw,
is success to me. So, I
that's
had this one
amazing.
student who came in, and he walked into the class, or they walked into the class and said, "I'm just telling you right now, I hate this class." Nothing personal, but I hate this class. I know I'm gonna hate it. And
Oh,
he was traumatized because his past experience was like he'd taken stats in uh, uh, a junior college and had failed it like 6 times.
ugh,
And so he
well,
came in like traumatized. And I said, we're going to take it week by week. And rarely do I have students who don't do well in my class. And he ended up, I think, with an A minus.
oh my lord. Wow,
So
that's incredible.
it was just like, let's just come in and decompress
For
and
sure.
talk things through. And if you're an active participant and you get sort of this calm, or you feel comfortable in the class, then it breaks through some of these learning barriers that you might have had in the past. So that to me is like joy.
For sure. That's so important to have a comfortable learning environment, you know?
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you were able to give that to that student. Okay. So, my next question is, what would you say to students who are afraid to admit that they're struggling in a course or are afraid to reach out for help? Because I'm not going to lie, I've been there before and it's hard sometimes.
Very hard. And I think a lot of times when students come in the first time, they're unsure of the relationship that they can have with their professors. And so, even knowing whether or not they should make an appointment with the professor can be a little daunting or scary.
Mhm.
And so, and my advice always is to get to know your professors. They're less intimidating than you think they are. And so, and so I always encourage students to reach out at the start of the meltdown rather than at the end.
For
Because,
sure.
yeah, because that's when oftentimes professors can help students get right back on track. And I think for students the stress level builds more and more and more. If they're just feeling a little bit behind, that stress level just starts to make it even harder. And professors have heard it all. We've heard it all. It's not new to have students who are like, I didn't get this concept and I don't know what to do. So come,
Sure.
make that step. You'll feel better. You'll feel better after you do. most.
Definitely. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's really hard for students to be vulnerable sometimes, but especially when you have professors that are so willing to help, I think it makes it a lot easier.
Mhm.
Um,
And I
well,
would say in general, professors come into this um, profession because they enjoy students and
absolutely.
enjoy learning, and so um, it's not all students connect with certain professors, um, but I think sometimes you connect more even when you just go in and make that appointment with a professor.
Great. Yes, that was actually my last question for you is what do you recommend that a student does to advocate for themselves if they feel like they're either not making that connection with their professor or if they feel like they're not really getting what they need from them?
I think it's so hard for students to advocate for themselves, and especially if they feel like um, maybe they didn't get the grade they wanted, or they thought they did better on this than they were scored. And again, I think it's very important for students to use their voice, and and that can be very difficult to do with professors, to come in and say, I think I deserve better. But that's what you learn to do. Those are challenges that will make you as a student grow. And and whether or not a professor decides to change that grade or not, you've learned to advocate. You've learned something. You've given yourself another skill. And that's confidence building in itself.
For
I
sure.
always encourage my students to reach out. I don't always change a grade. They don't always get what they want. I give them kudos
For
for
sure.
saying, "Hey, I think this should be right, and you marked me wrong here. What's up with that?"
For
Um,
sure.
do that. That's
And I,
that
I think
that gives a lot of strength to you as a student.
absolutely. And even if it doesn't go the way that they might have expected, at least they have that skill that they've built to be able to speak up for themselves.
Exactly. I mean,
Right.
and that's a skill that you need after school, after college. So
Absolutely.
all of these things, you just have to think about all of these challenges and all of these things that you do as a student. They help you in your world afterwards, where you're headed after that. They're building blocks.
That's
So
such a great point. Yeah, because we're all going to have to do that eventually at some point in our professional lives. So that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, it's challenging as a student. All of these things are new experiences, and so you just have to remember that. Those jitters are normal jitters. It's okay to have them. you know it's okay. It's okay that you have them. Just go ahead, go have them, and and confront them, and you'll be glad. All those things do help you move forward.
Well, that's amazing. This was so great. Thank you so, so much for being here. Um, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited that you're doing this and welcoming students this way. I think it's important for them to get a feel of professors and the university in a more personal way. So appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.